Coming up, the question is, why climb that mountain? The answer is, because it's there. This and more next on Perspectives. Hello, I'm Sam Jones. You know, in my line of work, you meet a lot of people, leaders and followers, heroes, and just plain folks. There have also been a few legends, and some of those became friends. One's on my mind right now, and I want to tell you a little bit about him. I knew Billy Parker from his KVOO radio days. I used to listen to him on the radio in my hometown of Fort Smith, Arkansas. KVOO. 50,000 watts of clear channel. And back in the day, it was known as a flamethrower, meaning because of its strength, you could easily pick up the station's signal just about anywhere in this nation's breadbasket. As a matter of fact, if you bought a radio anywhere in western Arkansas, KVOO was usually marked on the tuning dial. And then, of course, at night, the station could be heard coast to coast. As a matter of fact, truck drivers and their families knew KVOO well. The truckers could call in from a payphone, request a song, pass along a message to the family back home, and both would be broadcast over KVOO. The family could do the same. See, this was long before CB radios and cell phones. KVOO was the trucker's friend in the night. Billy Parker was right in the middle of it all. But there's more to it than just that. You see, just about anybody can sit behind a microphone and talk and play music and call themselves a disc jockey. Over the years, Billy rose above that. A gifted broadcaster with a love of country music carried him to the level of legend. A few days before Christmas, I got the call from my friend with news of a big change coming in his life. He said it was time to sign off. And Sunday night, December 27th at 8 o'clock would be his last broadcast. Well, of course, my first reaction was to say, hey, Billy, I'd like to be there when you tape your last show, but I didn't say that. No, I wanted to be with Billy the way I'd come to know him all these years, sitting beside a radio listening as he made magic over the airwaves, and that's exactly what I did. It was 8 o'clock Sunday night, and his theme came on. And Billy Parker's Country Junction was on the air on Big Country 99.5. A few minutes later, there it was. That voice came over the speaker, and once again he made me feel like a member of his family. Now, only somebody with a passion for what they're doing can pull that off. It was absolutely no surprise when he announced his first song on his final radio show would be an idol of his, Ray Price. And all of a sudden, I was transported back to the 1970s. Through all of the songs that followed, Billy kept up the flow in between, thanking the sponsors who'd been with him for some 20 and even 30 years, and that's unheard of this day and age. They were loyal, and so was he. For his good work over the years, he was rewarded time and time again, nationally, regionally, and locally, all of it well-deserved. Interestingly, after a few minutes, I told my wife, I'll bet that control room's crowded when they tape this show. She smiled and nodded. She's a broadcast widow, and she understood what I was talking about. Yeah, there were some folks there, those sponsors I mentioned, and a reporter and photographer from the Tulsa World and a few friends. But there were others there too, but only Billy could see them. The first one through the door was Ray Price. Then came Willie, Hank Jr., Roy, George, Bob, and the Playboys. Johnny Lee came in late. He stood next to Leon. Tammy, Patsy, Dolly, Wanda, Barbara. And soon the line stretched down the hall and out the door. Merle was there. Whisperin' Bill and the Man in Black were there. All of them came to say thanks, Billy. They all smiled when he announced his regular song of inspiration, an oldie, Sweet Beulah Land. And they all knew what he'd done over the years for all of them. Yes, sir. The long hours behind the mic, working concerts and shows with many of them, and with his own band, raising money for charities and giving his time when he really didn't have it to give. Billy Parker, you see, lived it. He knew many major stars on a first-name basis, the big names of country music, several he'd worked with at one time or another. He understood them, and he brought that understanding to the microphone, and the listeners, such as myself, reaped the benefits, the same way I did during his last broadcast, as his passion washed over me like warm, holy water. I knew broadcast history was being made, and I was witness to it. And when his last broadcast was over, I also know those unseen friends followed him to the parking lot. I knew, too, that before he got into his car, he turned and waved and said, "Hey, thank you all." Then he drove away. Now, in closing, there are three things I want to say about Billy Parker. Number one, I'm taller than Billy, but he casts a much longer shadow. Legends are like that. And to be real honest with you, I'm a better man and a better broadcaster for having known him. Number two, we'll never again see his likes on the air. It's all over. You see, he was the same on the air and off, and I never heard him say anything mean about another human being. And number three, when the time comes, and it will, when God calls and says, "Billy, it's time to come home. I got a great opening for you here." Billy will probably say something like, "Well, that sounds just great. What shift? And what's your wattage?" And God might say, "Don't worry about that, son. You're going to like it. And you won't have to use your own CDs." And then Billy might say, "Well, all right, then. Let's do it, partner." And that's my perspective. Up next, if you were to meet today's guests on any street, they would appear to be very normal. The difference between them and the rest of us is we prefer to walk on level ground. More on that when we come back.